Hello, and welcome to another Starved Rock Snapshot. Today we will be discussing Le Rocher and Fort St. Louis. The beauty, diversity, and bounty of the Illinois Valley was well known amongst the various Native American groups, such as the Kaskaskia, a sub-tribe of the Illinois Alliance, whose village was located along the Illinois River a short distance upstream from Starved Rock. The first known contact between the Kaskaskia and Europeans occurred in 1673 when French explorer Louis Joliet and Jesuit missionary Jacques Marquette stopped at the Kaskaskia village while returning from their exploration of the central Mississippi River. Although the Joliet and Marquette party passed Le Rocher, the rock, today's Starved Rock, neither explorer mentioned it in their reports or correspondences. They did, however, note the overall beauty and utility of the Illinois River Valley. Marquette wrote in his journal, "We have seen nothing like this river that we enter, as regards to its fertility of soil, its prairies and woods, its cattle, elk, deer, wildcats, bustards, swans, ducks, parakeets, and even beaver. There are many small lakes and rivers. That on which we sailed is wide, deep, and still for 65 leagues. In the spring and during part of the summer, there is only one portage of half a league." On January 1st, 1680, an expedition led by René Robert Cavalier, also known as La Salle, arrived in the Starved Rock area. La Salle was soon to recognize that Le Rocher, a 125-foot sandstone bluff surrounded by steep sides, with the shallow and rocky river in front, was a good location for a fort that would protect French interests from Iroquois war parties and act as headquarters for French diplomacy and trade with regional tribes. One of the very first written historical references to Starved Rock comes from La Salle in 1680, who wrote to his second-in-command, Henry Tonti, "Go to the old village to visit the rock and build a strong fort upon it." A few years later, in the winter of 1682 through March of 1683, Henry Tonti constructed Fort St. Louis under the supervision of Jacques Bourdon d'Autrey. 18 to 22 Frenchmen cleared the rock in its immediate area of timber to provide materials for the fort's construction, as well as clear any areas where potential enemies might approach the fort. Along the rim of the rock's summit were palisades, wooded spiked walls 8 to 10 inches in diameter and between 15 to 20 feet high. There were 3 redoubts, or wooden blockhouses, that were incorporated into the palisades on the corners of the rock used as lookouts. There was also a chapel, a warehouse or gunpowder magazine, soldiers' quarters, Indian huts, and several small cabins. The French planted maize within musket shot of Le Rocher on today's Plum Island, where Native American groups had planted maize prior to the arrival of the French. To get water to the summit from the river, a handle and crank system constructed out of 4 large logs was built. Between the time of La Salle's first expedition into the Illinois country in 1680 and construction of the fort in 1682 to 83, an Iroquois incursion of the Illinois country drove the Illinois Indians from their lands east of the Mississippi. With construction of the fort completed, Tonti headed west to convince the scattered Illinois groups to return to Kaskaskia, their old village near Starved Rock. In the summer through fall of 1683, several Illinois groups returned to Kaskaskia, living in what historians call La Salle's colony, an assortment of tribes that stretched between today's Iroquois River and eastern Bureau County. Safety in numbers from Iroquois war parties and access to European trade goods provided the incentive for the tribes to relocate in La Salle's colony. During March of 1684, while the colony tribes were away on their annual winter hunt, a 200-man Iroquois war party laid siege to Fort St. Louis. Inside the fort were 24 French and 22 Shawnee, Miami, and Mohegans. 6 days after the siege had begun, Illinois groups such as the Peoria returned to the Starved Rock area and broke the Iroquois siege, causing the Iroquois to flee the Illinois Valley. Tonti and another of La Salle's associates, Francois de la Forest, were granted La Salle's Illinois country concession, headquartered at Starved Rock after La Salle was murdered in 1687 in Texas. Trade was conducted between the French and the colony tribes. With the Starved Rock area's natural resources exploited to the limit, the remaining Illinois left their Kaskaskia village along with the other Illinois groups by 1691 and resettled further south at Lake Peoria. The French soon followed their trade alliances and abandoned Fort St. Louis. Thank you for joining me for the short-lived history of Starved Rock's Fort St. Louis. For more information on Fort St. Louis, you can visit the IDNR website at www.illinois.gov/DNR under the Starved Rock page. A diorama displaying Fort St. Louis and artifacts found in the area pertaining to the French and Native American trade network can be viewed at the Starved Rock Visitor Center.